Howdy, lieutenants and economists.
The most volatile, evil, disgusting things on the planet, humans. If you have a video request, you can always go to assholeconsulting.com.
Yeah, I am gonna charge you, kids. And that is the importance of not fucking up.
You are such an asshole!
Hello again, everyone. It's me, Chad Elkins again. Mr. Clary, the captain, has asked me to impart some wisdom, some more accounting wisdom, since he got another email. So I'm going to do that again today. This time I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of a couple different areas of accounting, and we'll sort of go from there. So just another 30 seconds of quick background about me. I'm a certified public accountant. I have my own tax practice. I have worked in both public accounting and even the private sector, and while I do work primarily in tax, I have actually worked a little bit in audit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my experiences with that. So if you want any of my information, just go to the captain's blog. Now, let's get to the email. Hey asshole, I'm a 19-year-old student at the University of California at Santa Barbara, majoring in economics and accounting. I will graduate with no debt and will have satisfied the 150 semester, 225 quarter unit requirement for CPA licensure upon graduation with a bachelor's because I had a fuck ton of eligible AP IB credits from high school. Way to work the system on that one. I intend to take and pass the CPA exam as soon as possible after graduating and then beginning to work immediately after passing around the age of 22. You're really on the ball so far. I've liked everything you've said. Great job. Basically, my question is that if I get into a Big Four firm or really any other line of accounting related work in industry, what are the pros and cons of tax and audit? I've narrowed my career choices down to these two subfields largely because they're the only viable ones in public accounting. There's a few others, but you definitely want to start with one or the other if you're getting into public. So we'll just go with that. Bluntness is appreciated, and yes, I know that both will suck a fair amount of cock. Well, it's good that you know what you're getting into. I would like a video response if possible, thanks. Okay, so here's the thing with this. And this is kind of similar to the first video I did last week. The overarching question here is, what are your long-term career goals? Because that kind of depends on where you may want to steer yourself in. So I'm going to start with talking about audit. I made a few notes here just because I wanted to. I could make an hour-long video about this, but I want to keep it kind of short and sweet here. So here's why you may want to go into audit instead of tax. If your long-term career goals are more geared towards climbing the corporate ladder, working for different companies throughout your life, I think you should go into audit in public accounting, because with audit, you really see it all when it comes to financial statement preparation and accuracy, and that makes you a much stronger candidate to really move up the food chain when it comes to corporations, because you'll start out as a staff accountant, then you'll become a senior accountant. Ultimately, you could become an accounting manager, then a controller, and possibly even a CFO if you make it that high. And that's what most company people per se do, is they start in auditing. So the downside to tax, in a sense, is that it is pretty specialized. So, if you do want to stay with a company and kind of rise in the ranks, there's going to be fewer opportunities to do that if you kind of have that tax niche. So a lot of people start out in auditing and just kind of climb the corporate ladder. So with audit, and here's another thing about audit. This could be considered a pro or a con, but it's something you need to know about. With audit, you tend to travel and work in teams more than you would in tax. So if you're into that sort of thing, working in groups and going around to different locations with your coworkers and developing that kind of camaraderie, you're far more likely to do a lot more of it in audit versus tax. Now, you still do some of it in tax, but this is exclusively auditing. That is auditing, is going around with your audit team and working long hours and going to middle of nowhere places sometimes, and then going to dinner with everybody, going to happy hour after work. I mean, to me, that's audit in a nutshell. So if that's what you are kind of excited about or looking forward to, you should stay in audit. Now, the last thing with audit is that I found that there were a lot more people working in audit versus tax when I was in public accounting. So it seems like audits generally require more manpower, so to speak. So if you're really looking more to network and sort of getting more face time with clients and coworkers and that sort of thing, you're really going to have power in numbers doing that with audit, because that is all, I swear, it seems like that's all they do is they work together and they eat together and drink together and travel together. And that never really appealed to me, but it may appeal to you. So that's something about audit. So I'm going to talk about tax now, and I'm just going to say this off the bat. I obviously am biased towards tax because I just think it's way better. But you know, if you're trying to figure out which one you want to get into, here is why there are some advantages to getting into tax. So the first of all is that if your long-term career goals are to start your own business or to work for yourself, in my opinion, it's a lot more advantageous to go into tax instead of audit. Now, this is because from an entrepreneurial standpoint, while you can work in audit and transition to starting your own bookkeeping firm or some other kind of similar venture, you can make a lot more money starting your own tax preparation practice and just accumulating all sorts of clients, both corporate and individual. And I'm speaking from experience on that. Now, the other thing is, here's something. You're from California. If you're planning on staying there, California is one of the most tax-heavy states, and there's all kinds of people and companies that are looking for. Everybody needs tax help in California, so just something to think about. You will be able to find clients out there. That I am sure of. Just another thing is that tax allows for more creativity and problem solving versus auditing. I mean, auditing is like just checking boxes and say, okay, this looks good, that looks good, A plus B equals C, same thing as last year. There's just not a lot of, from my limited experience with it, there's just not a lot of creativity involved with it. But with tax, you get to construct, you get to problem solve, you get to sit there and try to construct legal ways to save your clients money. It can even be fun in that sort of way. Plus, the tax laws are always changing, so you get to kind of study them and keep up with their, like, sort of stay on top of everything. To me, I think that's kind of neat. And with auditing, I don't know if GAAP regulations, they've barely changed in 50 years, so it's just kind of the same old, same old. So that's one thing. And here's something that I remember. I actually, just real quick, I had an internship in between my first and second year of my MBA program. It was for a bank. And the first 5 weeks of the internship I spent in internal audit, and the last 5 weeks were spent in the tax department. And I found this to be pretty funny. When you're an auditor, nobody wants to see you. Because people see you as like, oh, the fucking auditor's here again. What a pain in the ass. I'm tired of that guy. But with tax, everybody's happy to see you because they know that your sole purpose is to save them money, to try to get the IRS off their backs. It's like auditing is just a necessary evil that nobody really wants to deal with, but everybody has to tolerate. Whereas tax, they kind of see you as part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So, may not matter much to you, but to me, I always thought that made me feel much better working in tax versus audit. So, anyway. So just a few other things before I wrap this up. Which do you find more interesting of the two? I mean, did you take... I know you've taken courses in both because you said you had all those hours. There had to have been one that you had more of a knack for, that you looked for more than the other. I mean, for me, it was obvious I was more into tax from the beginning, but there has to be one that you felt like you were more suited for. And another thing, if you don't know this now, even if you're studying for the CPA exam, like the auditing section for me was like Chinese water torture. I just hated every second of that. Whereas with tax, I mean, it still wasn't fun to study for, but it stuck with me a lot more, and I was actually more into sitting there and reading about the rules and regulations and learning them. So there's that. I did want to point out that, now notice I didn't say anything about money, because I kind of think how much money you make is not a factor as far as which one you should go into, because like I said at the beginning, it just matters if you want to work for yourself or if you want to rise in the corporate ranks. Whichever one of these you pick, you can make a ton of money. It's sink or swim at your own level, but you do have to think about which path is best for you. In the end, I think these points are important, and I could make a lot more about each. But the thing is, like with all things in life, you just have to kind of go with a gut feeling and see which one makes you feel the best. Because just going back to that internship I mentioned, I just dreaded going to work for the audit portion of the experience. I just hated it. I didn't want to do it. It was so boring to me. But with tax, with tax, when I started working there, I wanted to get up. I wanted to get to work. I wanted to check out what the company's books were and kind of see if there were ways where we could find some loopholes, or what we'll call you. So you really can't lose either way, but do try to figure out which one you have more of a knack for, you may have more of a passion for, you may be more suited for. So think about that a little bit, and make a decision based on that above everything else. And by the way, I know there's going to be more reasons that one is better than the other. Comments are good section. If anybody has any other ideas, just throw them in the comments. But this is my take on it. So best of luck to you going forward, and toodles.